All right, everyone. It looks like trade negotiations with China have taken a turn for the worse. The same is true of North Korea, actually. And this has happened like 5 times before, so I'm not worried about the latter. Apparently, they're like, well, the U.S. and South Korea lack the will for continued talks. We'll see if that actually ends up being the case. It's a delicate sort of dance of diplomacy there. With regards to China, though, China's economy is a lot bigger, and they've decided to go hard on the United States. That temporarily declined the Dow Jones the other day by historic levels. I don't know that I would expect it to continue, because what'll happen is a slide back into normalcy, where even if there's a tariff war going on, it's like, well, it's par for the course, same old, who fucking cares? I don't know that it's going to cause major problems. It could be an attempt, here's an interesting idea, by China to prevent Trump from being reelected, because they're tired of having to deal with someone who actually stands up for American interests as opposed to globalism. Like, if you're a globalist, you don't give a fuck if China runs roughshod over U.S. industry. You don't care because you can always invest in China. So you can invest in the other party, say, all right, let them win. Who gives a fuck? It'd be interesting, actually, if the globalist conspiracy were a bunch of Americans trying to make themselves rich by deliberately investing in other countries and then making the U.S. lose against them. Be an interesting strategy. It's also very possible that that could happen. It's not like there's any significant regulatory structure that can't be bought off preventing that from happening. I've never seen that particular strategy talked about as though it was possible. I'm alleging that it is. Anyway, with regards to this, it's very funny because one thing that China did, the other day, proves Trump right, at least in his fundamental central premise, which is that China is a currency manipulator. What did they do? They deliberately devalued their own currency. Oh yeah, what was it, like 7% or something? That's a defensive move. It shows that the U.S. tariffs are actually biting and having an impact. Because otherwise it doesn't really make sense for a country to want to make its currency worth less. The problem for China, I think, is this. The problem could be that the fact that pretty much openly exposes them as doing what Trump has alleged them to have been doing more in secret for a long time, that could cause investors to flee from China, I would think. Because they're like, well, this proves the U.S. point right, number one. And number two, what if it keeps happening? Like, if China's going to micromanage and fuck around with its economy, and if there's going to be a trade war going on, if I'm especially a U.S. investor in China, how do I know I don't get fucked? How do I know the Chinese don't suddenly nationalize my factory or something like that and say, fuck it? If there's a continued tariff war, I mean. Or it could be the tariffs extend to whatever I'm developing. Maybe it makes more sense for me to go to India or Malaysia right now. Yeah, I take a hit, but long term, there's no trade war going on with these countries. Maybe I should do that. It's possible. It could also hurt the United States, at least short term. It probably will. There'll probably be more markets aligning, I would assume. It's not great because the goal should be the U.S. and China, as the two largest economies in the world, get to a point where there's an amiable free trade relation between the two. The problem has been, for decades now, not just years, but decades, China manipulates its currency, levies tariffs on U.S. goods to protect its own economy, and then expects that the U.S. will take that and then do nothing in response. We will continue to shell out inordinate amounts of money to other countries as a goal of appeasement, where they can manipulate things and intervene in things and do weird shit with trade and currency, and we're not supposed to because we're capitalistic. Well, the meaning of capitalism isn't being dumb. It's not really free trade if the other country is not freely trading. It's lopsided. It's you saying, well, we're going to give you goods. Yeah, we don't care if you manipulate it on your end and screw us in the process, and then we end up having to subsidize things directly. Look, when these people, especially Democrats, sellouts, when they say, well, Trump is deviating from free trade. What are you talking? I mean, the laissez-faire economy that you're talking about largely doesn't exist. That is part of the problem. The free market could probably deal with the problem of China without the government on the outside end doing anything. But we don't have that. We have a government that throws subsidies to and buys up agricultural crops and does all sorts of weird shit. Have you ever looked into like the era of FDR and some of the micromanagement of farming going on then for pricing controls and shit like that? There's a lot of centrality and intervention in the United States economy. It's no longer a truly free market economy. It's a hybrid economy. It's a mixed model. That's basically the kind of economy we have. A lot of our productivity is tied up in government and non-privatized endeavors, and where it's privatized, a lot of it's based on subsidies and grants, again, from that central role of the government, either at the federal level or in some cases at the state level, in some cases at the local, municipal level. That's not a truly free market economy. It's a hybrid economy. Now, there's something to be said for having certain regulatory controls over your economy. The problem is we got too much. So if the government is going to manage things, it has to be able to manage them well. The problem is successive administrations have paid lip service to free trade without actually managing to get to the point where other countries are freely trading with us. It's a little problem. Then they're saying, well, we're going to suspend U.S. agricultural imports. Okay, for how long? Until your people starve? And it's going to be very interesting because China has poisoned a lot of its agricultural land. It's interesting because there was just some sort of weird deal where I guess U.S. regulators decided, and I disagree with this entirely, that it was okay for U.S. chickens to be shipped to China, processed there, and then shipped back. I'm thinking that's not efficient, it can't possibly be cost efficient, and it doesn't sound safe. Yeah, freeze the chickens, ship them several weeks across the ocean to China, prepare them, refreeze them, ship them back. That's disgusting, to tell the truth. It makes me not want to buy U.S. chicken because it might not technically be U.S. chicken at all. Oh, the chicken came from Alabama, but then it went through Beijing before it got to your dinner table. That's pretty grody, dude. I think that we should probably try to grow and package and manufacture and process things as much as possible within our own borders so that we can control the quality of the product. Maybe we should have warning stickers. This product was shipped to China before it got to you. Yeah, it's from the U.S. It went across the Pacific Ocean on 2 different occasions before you bought it. Maybe that would cause them to stop doing so. We need better labeling laws. That's one thing we need. Shouldn't just have a made in China sticker. It should have a sticker that says made in a province in China overrun with radioactive waste and coal tailings. By the way, if your kid chews on this, they might get deformed. A little bit of economic populism would probably be a positive thing. But yeah, I mean, the trade war is not going to be won in a day. It was funny, Trump made Mexico and Canada roll over in months, made Germany roll over in days. China really is the big kahuna, though, because it's the only other main world economy. It's a close number 2. It's got, basically in second place in every measure on the military. It's got an increasing diplomatic leverage. I would say there's a reason why far fewer countries peg their currency to China as opposed to the US dollar. That could hurt them in the long term. I mean, this is a defensive maneuver. It's just one that's also going to hurt the US, but anything that hurts our economy also hurts the Chinese economy. They know this. They fucking know that that's the case, is where they're biggest importer of goods. We're the biggest trading partner of China. They're number 3 when it comes to U.S. trading partners. It's a lopsided arrangement where we have all the cards. If they decide to punish us and our economy, it's going to come at great pain to the Chinese government, too. That's just the name of the game. It would be best to have the tariff war end and have a trade deal, but I think what they're doing is trying to get Trump kicked out of office. Makes me almost want to vote for him more, actually, when this happens. Ensure that he can keep their toes to the fire for an extra number of years. I bet they would be wanting a trade deal at that point, to prevent China from fucking collapsing. And by the way, it works in reverse too. If China has major economic problems, that hurts the U.S. economy. We've got a symbiosis going on, oddly enough, with the big nation of communism. It's really kind of interesting how they've managed to maneuver their economy into such a position relative to our own. That's about all. Peace out.